Bob, come on up. Bob has the big job at Verizon. Here's the thing. Everything that I do in my entire world somehow ends up in a Verizon-esque place. They were kind enough to give me this Note 3. And I'm just telling you now, since you have the big job Verizon, you're not getting it back.
I don't want it back.
Okay, good. We're going to have a chit-chat about life. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Mudge.
Hi, everyone.
How you doing?
Very good. Good afternoon, everybody.
All right, so I want to talk about living and working in a connected world, and I want you just to tell me, oh my goodness, where can I start? You guys have built a network for the next 100 years. Fiber is awesome, 4G is awesome. I'm feeling like the enabling technologies for all the things I love to do seem to come from the carriers, and you would be one of those carriers, so discuss.
Sure. Thank you. It's interesting that you frame it that way. Not too many years ago, there'd be more criticism for building the network that we and others have built. Just in the last 5 years, it's $80 billion. And I'll talk a lot about Fios, but
Wow.
if I think of Verizon, I'll just do a little sales pitch here, and I think of a three-legged stool, that connectivity really evolves around three places. The cloud, which is still fairly nascent, but that's going to have a bigger impact on all of us than we know in the next few years. The wireless world, which is very clear with LTE, and then Fios. So when I think of the connectivity, Shelley, we're still involved in the connection side of the connected house. So right now we're heads down on getting these bigger pipes, bidirectional, symmetrical, big pipes into everyone's home that we can. And running to that as fast as we can, because the data side of the equation, what it means to connectivity, what it means to people living their lives, is really becoming very quickly the center of the universe in what was an old kind of triple play model. TV and voice are relevant, but data is the center of the universe for us.
So when you think about the network, and you think about how consumers pass back and forth, you can literally live your life on LTE. You never need to be in Wi-Fi. Some people do it because there's a cost savings. But you have like a bunch of different radios that you're connected to. You could theoretically live just in a Fios world. This combination of seamlessly going back and forth creates its own set of unique, let's just say, issues. When do I, as a consumer, get to a point in the United States when I have what I would consider seamless connectivity? How far away is that in real terms?
I think it's a matter of months and years, and I'll tell you why. Right now, we clearly want customers to be playing in the Fios space, and we want them to be using LTE. The bandwidth and the ability to share and provide that massive amount of data, that broad user experience, is much greater in Fios than it is in LTE. On an individual basis, on a bursty basis, clearly with 10, 15, 20 megabits, LTE is doing things that you and I, many people wouldn't think would have happened 5 years ago. So in the middle is this Wi-Fi space, and what's unique is, and where you'll see us make some very important moves, and I mean literally next year, is that the Wi-Fi operation and the Wi-Fi experience changes for users. Because somewhere in the middle, the center of the universe still, selfishly from where I sit, is in the home, that magical router. And so in fact, we can actually have a value proposition for customers that says, hey, if you are worried about your data use and you are worried about the cost side, and many are, well, when you're home where you're still doing a lot of your mobility work, the Wi-Fi router will take over just fine. And so the next thing that we have to do is make that relationship between the devices in the home and the people in the home and that router seamless. We can get away from, and we need to get away from. I was hooking up some home monitoring equipment recently. I'm on my belly and I'm looking for a WEP key. I'm finding my reading glasses. So we're into the speed, but we're also, what can we do for self-discovery? What can we do to still kind of manage the security that we need, but know that if you've brought a connected device into the home, well, most likely you want to connect it to that router. Yeah. So why make you work so hard to do that? So those three, I think, will stay in concert. And I think Wi-Fi, particularly in the home, I'm not talking the public Wi-Fi, but for the Wi-Fi that you as the user secure and that you're confident with, that can actually have a bigger role between the other two networks.
Myth or fact? LTE simply will not be robust enough to deliver HD and 2K or 4K television, I'm going to have some kind of wired connection, fiber optic connection, and Fios or wired or Wi-Fi to take up the slack. True, myth or fact?
Myth, because I think LTE and how we use and manipulate the technology will have additional capabilities that can bring you HD, including next generation of HD. The difference, though, between LTE and what Fios would bring, though, is the ability to serve multiple thousands of people in a concentrated area versus you as a single user that may want to utilize LTE for a minute, for 3 minutes, or even 15 minutes, but more as a unique, moving and agile user of bandwidth. The application for LTE and what it can do, I think it's myth when you take that application, Shelley. But there'll be
that's my point. In other words, if I was going to say I'm going to watch broadcast television as I understand it, whether you used it in Hulu or whether YouTube brought me the content or Netflix brought me the content or NBC brought me the content, I'm going to use an LTE network to deliver that content. I'm going to stay on that all day long in my house. If everybody did that, one would assume LTE is going to go, tilt, whereas Fios, the fiber, the cables have enough capacity to do that.
It's got the built-in bandwidth, and we engineered it that way.
So it's going to be that way for the foreseeable, because you hear a lot of people get up on stage and say, oh, we're going to live in a completely wireless world. You're going to watch 4K television across 10 households. Everybody in the house is going to have 4K. It's going to be all LTE.
No, those networks are going to be complementary to each other, and they'll care for you in different ways and where you are.
So
we don't have plans at Verizon to have LTE become the transmission medium for all video and data usage.
Okay, so everybody who's scared that my Samsung friends are going to build LTE television sets and LTE is going to be the delivery mechanism and the cable guys and Fios go away, you heard it here first. Don't be scared. That's myth.
It's myth.
That's a myth. Write that down, tweet it out. That's myth. Okay, so TV the art form versus TV the platform. What I do know is that there's a million ways through the router you're talking about for me to consume content. And some of the gateways that you are working with, some of those routers, provide a very emotionally satisfying way over my tablet to enjoy all kinds of video content inside my household footprint. You shared a statistic with me. I don't know if you want to share it with the audience about just how many people will be able to consume content that way next year.
Oh, the point I was raising with you earlier is if you said to me today, for a typical Fios customer, what's more important for them to operate and grow another TV in the home or to have satisfaction on the wireless tablet? I'm far more concerned, the team is far more concerned about that wireless tablet becoming part of what people think is the Fios ecosystem. And so we're really heads down. We have 10 channels out of the home. We've been very focused on live out of the home. I think VOD and library content is important, but I think what makes it really cool and interesting, and you don't need to have all the channels, but if you have a major set of channels on top of VOD, on top of all this material you have in your recording and your DVRs, you will be, as a customer, very pleased with what you can do with your tablet, your other mobile device going forward. And by the middle of next year, I hope to have all three of those points accomplished for the user.
Now, we've been concentrating on delivered content that's video, but part of the thing that fascinates me the most is the Internet of Things and machine to machine. I'm wearing my jawbone up. I've got my Withing scale that's connected. You walk into my house, there's things all over the place that are connected through Wi-Fi in most cases, although in some cases Bluetooth, in other cases LTE. This Internet of Things, there's so many things around my house that are connected. Talk to me a little bit about Verizon's vision in the ecosystem for where my garage door opener, my household alarm, where does that all go?
So we look at the Internet of Things and the connectivity, machine to machine, being just, it's why we're so bullish and have made some decisions we've made recently to double down on our investment in ownership in the United States. Some critics would say that the market is saturated when you look at the wireless industry of the United States. We disagree. We think by 2017, there will be 3 connected devices for every person on the planet. Now, not every person is created equal, so that means there could be 20 in some areas and still 1 or 2. But when you kind of put that together, and by the way, that's not a
21 billion devices by 17.
By 2017, which is really just a moment away when you think about what it takes to create that network. So machine to machine is really is where we see that. It's in healthcare. We see it in energy just as well. And so we've really kind of worked around those areas. And again, I think the biggest endorsement is why we're still bullish to really stay bold in the United States with the investment in Verizon Wireless.
So if I'm in business, if I'm in the media business, if I'm in the technology business, and I look at the network you guys have created, and I try to understand the infrastructure and the way Verizon sees it, strategically, where do I want to position myself? How do I best take advantage of the network that you and other carriers are putting together for us?
In the industry,
Yeah.
IP-based interoperability between the two, understanding that Wi-Fi will have a place in the ecosystem, even though we ring our cash register with LTE and FiOS, and it would be the next layer. I think is again, and there's a few folks on my team here in the crowd, and they're always heckling me. This issue of creating devices that the connectivity is so simple that that again, and I just use the example of whether it's web keys, registrations, passwords. The breakthrough and what we do next for home monitoring, what we do for healthcare that goes beyond monitoring to actually helping heal people will be customers' comfort with the simplicity of using the devices and that they're like any other device in the home. Think of your appliances in your home that run on electricity. You don't have to segment you plug them in, they work.
Right.
There's no registration, there's firewalls. So what has to happen is for the IP devices that are plugged into broadband, we need to create that same system where customers will be willing to just buy whatever they want, wherever they see it, be motivated by the innovation in the electronic space, and know that when they come home and plug it in or place it on the counter, it will work, and they don't have to tax themselves to kind of make it happen. So for anyone that's looking at the industry and looking to participate and take advantage of that explosion you mentioned, it really is making sure that the devices are of the simplest nature, this issue of self-discovery that I've mentioned, and we're going to just, that explosion is limitless.
Bob Mudge, thank you so very, very, very much for being with us. So let's give a
Thank
big
you very
hand,
much.
big round, Bob.